As someone who's read probably way too many books, there are lots of historical figures and philosophers who've had a major impact on my work, many of them who you know very well. And the following is a compilation of all those moments in which I've discussed these very influential figures on my life. Here you go. I think of Leonardo da Vinci, who had a quote at the end of his life saying, after you've worked really hard during the day, you've toiled at something, you go to sleep and you have this great feeling like you accomplished something. But when you die, do you have that same feeling? Like, I did something, I accomplished something, now I can die in peace. And I think the worst thing is in life would be to reach the age of 60, 65 and go, God, I could have been so much more. I could have created something. I could have done what I said I was going to do. I could have written that book, but I didn't. To me, I tell anybody, if you're in your 20s, don't ever have that feeling. And it'll come quicker than you imagine. Realize that you want to reach that end with a sense of, I did what I felt I could do when I was a child. I had these dreams and I reached them.
Schopenhauer has this quote that if you're walking down the street and you hit your foot against a rock, you don't go get angry at the rock. Well,
Sure.
People are rocks in your way sometimes.
Right.
And I don't mean that to depersonalize them. I mean in the sense that they are who they are. They have their own nature, and that nature isn't yours, and it's going to clash with you sometimes. And that is just what it means to be a human being, an adult in the world today, in any world. So are you going to be like complaining and blaming the fact that it is a boxing ring? Are you going to complain that people have a nature where they have an ego, where they're full of envy, where they're passive aggressive? And then in the process of complaining, you're putting yourself at a continual disadvantage because you're draining yourself with all these useless emotions, and you're not playing proper defense against them because you're all consumed with kind of personalizing the situation. Or are you going to have some distance and be like a boxer in a ring and be smart and intelligent about it, you know? And I just think it's a brilliant metaphor for life. It's a brilliant metaphor for being in control and for accepting the fact that some people play a little bit dirty. Some people are going to hit you. It's going to hurt. But you don't whine and complain. You just figure out how are you going to defend yourself better.
That connects to the thing that you and I made together, which is the Amor Fati coin.
Yes.
Which is the idea that it's also a Nietzsche phrase of sort of loving everything that happens to you, not resenting it, not fighting against it, not carrying around a grudge or a burden, but sort of embracing it and finding the good in it.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in with our human nature?
It doesn't fit in because it's not natural to us. Our natural frame, our natural starting position is when something bad happens, why me? To feel sort of a grievance, to feel that things aren't fair, to feel that other people aren't giving you what you want or what you deserve. We start from a position of feeling kind of sorry for ourselves.
Right.
We deserve more than what we're getting. And so a lot of what I'm talking about in this book is overcoming some of these natural elements in human nature and turning them around and using them for another purpose, another way. And Amor Fati is very powerful in that you train yourself to accept everything that happens. It's sort of a banality to say that things happen for a reason, but there's some truth to it. For Nietzsche, it was, this is life. Life involves pain. Life involves adversity. You're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. Your friends and family members, they're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. You're going to have failure in life. People are going to hurt you. But that is life. That's what it is. So to resist that, to be angry about that, means to not love life itself. There's a quote, this French philosopher, Baron de Montesquieu, a political philosopher from the 18th century that I kind of like, and it goes as follows. We have 3 educations in our life. The first is from our parents, the second is from our schoolmasters, and the third is from the world. And the third education contradicts all that we learn from the first 2. And basically, what it means is you go and you learn all of these skills and all these very important things in university. But essentially, the years that follow, what I'm going to call your apprenticeship, requires a different way of thinking. The rules are completely different. It's not the same. In fact, many of the things that you learn and many of the habits that you learn early in your life are actually the wrong kinds of things that are going to help you, that you need in this path towards mastery that I'm drawing. Character is the core of a person, something they can't control, something that comes from deep within, and it causes people to have patterns of behavior. And you want to find people who have a strong character to associate with, as opposed to a weak character. And what a strong character is people who are adaptable, who are fluid, who can admit that they are wrong, who can learn from their experience, who can take criticism, who can work with other people. So I want you to focus not on people's charming exterior, on their funny words, on their wit, on their charisma. Instead, focus on that deep inner quality, that core, that character, because that's who they really are. Your character is creating what happens to you in life. There's the famous quote of the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, "Character is fate." Toni Morrison worked as an editor at this publication. She worked as an editor at this publication house. She worked until 6 or 7 o'clock. She took the train home to where she lived in Connecticut. She was raising 2 or 3 children. She would go home, cook them meals, put them to bed, and at 11 o'clock at night she would sit down and write. And that's how she wrote her first novel. That's the kind of energy and determination you have to have. I always thought that was superhuman, but I could never do that. But look at who she is and what she became. That's because she wanted it so badly. She was desperate. One of the masters I interviewed for the book is Temple Grandin. You know Temple?
Yeah. I saw the film that Claire Danes portrait. Yeah.
Well, she's a woman born with autism who's now a very successful scientist, a professor of animal studies. And, autism, she had, when it comes to people skills, she's way on the other end there. She basically trained herself how to work with people, how to be around them. She said it was almost like a science equation. She approached it as if it were a computing problem. Okay, this is what people do. All right, I'm going to have to try and be like that. Right. When I'm sitting there giving a lecture and I'm reading my note cards, the audience hates that. All right, I'm never going to read from. So she studied it like it's a science thing, and now she's like a really good public speaker. To me, one of the greatest American presidents that have ever lived is FDR. Now, FDR was, I think, a very decent man, but he was incredibly Machiavellian. And probably the best biography of FDR was a guy named McGregor Burns. The title of his book was The Fox and the Lion, which is a phrase from Machiavelli that sometimes you need to be the fox, and sometimes you need to be the lion. You need to be clever and crafty, and you need to roar and chew people up. You need to be able to be both. That was FDR. He was so clever. He knew how to create drama, how to create spectacles. He had a henchman, I think it's Harry Hopkins, who would do all the dirty work for him, so he never appeared to be doing anything dirty. He was very, very clever. I think he had high morals. I think he had good values, and he did great things. He led us through a depression. He led us through World War II. He created our social security system. He was a great president, but he knew the hard game of power. I contrast that with somebody like Jimmy Carter. Now, I know we all have our own personal beliefs here, but growing up in the era of Jimmy Carter, I thought the guy was rather incompetent. I thought he wasn't a very good president. He was moral. You would never find a more moral guy, a more decent human being. He was a wonderful person. I would have a beer with him. I would be his best friend. But I don't think he played the power game very effectively. And so sometimes the moral people aren't really necessarily those who know how to play the tough side of the power game. And sometimes people who have a little bit of a Machiavellian streak, but who have decent values, like an FDR, I think they can be much more effective in those kind of roles. Honestly, this is a tough world out there. It's a competitive world. People can be difficult. You have to have a little bit of iron in your soul. You have to be willing to sometimes fire somebody. And firing people can be difficult. Sometimes you have to be a little tough in who you hire. You have to see through the charlatans. You have to see through the narcissists, etc. You have to be a little bit tough in this world. I know that's not everything. I know you also have to be gentle and empathetic, and I agree completely. But I think sometimes people who are too good often don't make the best leaders. I'm sorry to say that.
You said something about people who are masters, or as I said, that's almost a conclusion, but strive for mastery, they actually get younger as they age.
Yes, I love this phenomenon, and I catalog it, and the icon of that is Benjamin Franklin. This guy's in his 80s, and people are meeting him, and they're going,